Most of the time when we talk about niche vehicles, we're talking about ones that are mud specific or tailored specifically for hunting or for sport riding. Today though, we're talking about a totally different kind of niche vehicle. Honda's Pioneer 700 4P DLX fits into a corner of the industry that nothing else does. It does things no other vehicle in the industry does, and I think it appeals to a buyer that nothing else in the industry can. And all of this is thanks to its cargo bed that tilts, but also hides two easily convertible rear passenger seats. When the bed is in cargo mode, you can haul up to 1,000 pounds, and you can tow up to 1,500 pounds with the 2-inch hitch receiver. Now these numbers are interesting because the cargo capacity is in line with other full-size utility side-by-sides like a Ranger XP, but the towing capacity is in line with other mid-size side-by-sides like the Ranger 570. So in terms of utility capabilities, it kind of fits right in between these two categories. With that said, there aren't too many jobs you won't be able to do around your property with these specs. I could certainly do everything I needed to do with it, with pounds to spare. The way the cargo bed tilts inside the rear roll cage means it's completely independent of the cage itself. And the way it converts from utility to recreation is really interesting and quite an engineering marvel. You have to make sure the bed is fully locked down. Then you simply open the perfectly integrated and nearly invisible rear doors, fold the seat back up till it latches, drop down the lumbar portion of the backrest, and latch the stationary portion of the rear 3-point seat belts. In a matter of about 90 seconds, you can go from a true utility side-by-side to one that's ready to haul the whole family on an epic adventure. Now I do need to point out a few realities of this setup that a buyer is going to need to be aware of. First, if you're going to be hauling sand or gravel or any other loose materials in the cargo bed, you're going to want to get the bed liner available from Honda so that that material doesn't foul up any of the seat conversion mechanisms. Second, the rear seats are capable of hauling a full-size adult, but not really well suited to it. The floor in the rear is really high and there's not much space back there, so there's almost no legroom. The seats are comfortable, but you're sitting directly on top of the rear axles, so the upward travel of the rear of the vehicle when you hit a bump is directed straight up your back. Now I'm not saying these rear seats are bad. For a smaller rider, they're actually just fine. But for a system that converts so seamlessly, there has to be some give and take. All I'm saying is you need to consider who you plan to have riding back here. The Pioneer 700 does look similar to the 1000, but in reality it couldn't be more different. The powertrain consists of a 675cc single-cylinder engine mated to a 3-speed automotive-style automatic transmission. Now this is the same engine and transmission as what's found in the new Rubicon 700, and it's very nearly identical to that of the older Rincon, so it has been around a while. There are two transmission modes, automatic, which does exactly what you think it does, and manual, which requires you to flick the paddle shifters to initiate up and down shifts. Now I pretty much always leave it in automatic and just use the override function of the paddle shifters to shift up when it hasn't decided to just yet. With only 3 speeds and no low range, first gear is really low. When you take off from a dead stop, it shifts almost immediately, but it's great for hauling and towing. Second gear is much longer, and the shift programming likes to hold second way up into the higher RPMs before shifting into third, which allows for a top speed of 65 miles an hour. At easy trail speeds, the transmission likes to be in second gear with the occasional upshift to third, which the 675cc single's excellent bottom end torque allowed it to pull at very low RPM. Now I wouldn't call this transmission sporty, but the reality is the Pioneer 700 isn't really intended to be a sport side-by-side, so when it's used as intended, I have no complaints. Likewise, the suspension is clearly targeted at hauling heavy loads and easy trail rides. Double arms produce 7.9 inches of travel up front and 9.1 inches in the rear. Now the front has a set of dual rate springs that are not preload adjustable, and out back you'll find a set of single rate springs that are snail cam preload adjustable. When you're working, the suspension setup is more than adequate, and I never felt like I needed to adjust the preload on the rear shocks any higher than the softest setting, which is how it comes set up anyway. On the trail though, I found the ride to be quite stiff. Now not unbearably so, but you wouldn't describe it as plush, and I don't think it's a suspension travel issue. I think the base level damping on the shocks needs to be softened up just a bit. That would make a huge difference. The rest of the Pioneer 700 4P DLX is a mix of high-end and budget-conscious parts. The headlights are halogen and have only one setting. The 4x4 system is operated by a lever on the dash and has 3 settings, 2, 4, and 4 lock, and the whole thing rolls on a set of 25-inch Blackstone tires. However, the 12-inch wheels are great-looking aluminum units, the front bumper is big and burly, the digital gauge tilts with the steering wheel, and the box includes LED lights. There are also 12-volt outlets to power your accessories, half doors, and high quality, if not a little overwhelming netting that is removable if you prefer. Now, I studied all the other utility side-by-side manufacturers' websites to see if I could find any other model that has the same mix of capability, versatility, and features as the Pioneer 700 4P, and I just couldn't find any. There are no other side-by-sides on the market that have the same mix of towing and hauling specs, width and wheelbase numbers, and certainly a cargo box that features convertible seating yet still retains its tilt functionality. Well, I mean, other than the Pioneer 1000 5P, of course, but that's in a completely different class altogether. That's why I think the Pioneer 700 4P is such a great unit. Yes, it is a niche vehicle, but it's a niche that appeals to a wide range of side-by-side buyers. Its near seamless mix of 2-seat functionality and 4-seat recreation is something you simply can't get anywhere else.